Oh, good morning. Welcome to Elevenses. Cut music off a little bit abruptly there. Apologies for that. Welcome to another Elevenses show. You're watching Kevin Williams here, Survival Skills Rider Training. Still trying to get myself a bit set up here, get everything squared up. What have I got for you today on today's Elevenses? Well, we're going to be looking at a government consultation on hands-free driving. Southwark County Council is looking at the fallout from a traffic calming scheme which has gone a bit awry. Held have launched a affordable airbag with something of a bit of questionable guarantee, I would call it. There's a rather pretty Enfield 650 twin, which I want to show you. And I'll just be talking about a little bit about reaching the hard to reach rider and how training can possibly get to those kind of people. All right, so I'll be with you for the next 14 or so minutes. So what have we got to kick off with? Well, the Department for Transport, the DFT, has issued a call for evidence into automated lane keeping systems, or ALKS, if you want the fairly ghastly abbreviation. As you probably already know, the point of the lane keeping systems is that they let the driver release the steering wheel and the car does the job itself of staying in lane. The best known of these systems is Tesla. On the one hand, there are quite a few proponents of the system. Transport Minister Rachel Maclean has said that automated technology could make driving safer, smoother and easier for motorists, and the UK should be the first country to see these benefits, attracting manufacturers to develop and test new technologies, which is kind of within keeping with the tradition of motorsports and motor development in this country. And there is an obvious rationale as to why the government might be looking at doing something like that right now, which I won't go into. Mike Hawes, Chief Executive of the Society for Motor Manufacturers and Traders, said automated technologies would be life-changing and could prevent 47,000 serious accidents in the next 10 years. Well, precisely how they get those figures is anybody's guess. The AA's President Edmund King has also welcomed the move, saying the UK is right to look into measures which could potentially make roads safer. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But as I'm sure you also know, there have been a number of fairly high-profile incidents involving the current driver assist feature, which went awry when drivers did not pay enough attention to the road and the system wasn't capable of coping with the situation in which the car found itself in. Most of these crashes have been over in the US, and there have been several fatal accidents. There was one involving a Tesla which went under an HGV. Basically, it couldn't distinguish the HGV from the background sky, and basically never spotted it and just drove straight into it. And the driver was apparently watching an episode of the Harry Potter movies or something on his phone in the passenger seat. There was an incident where another Tesla driver was killed when the car apparently failed to distinguish between the main carriageway and an exit ramp, and basically couldn't make up his mind which was which, and it actually hit the concrete barrier that then went on to divide the two. And there was also a very high-profile crash in Norway, where a Tesla hit a motorcyclist from behind when it was on the autopilot mode. So we kind of have to question whether or not, what drivers are expecting from these systems. And here in the UK, something I didn't know was that a Nottingham resident was actually banned in 2018 because he was sitting in the passenger seat of his Tesla on the motorway and letting it do the driving. Right now, the lane keeping system has been approved by the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, of which the UK is a member, and that allows for the systems to be used in motorway jams up to a speed of 37 miles per hour or 60 km. I'm not quite sure whether the road traffic acts in the UK have been amended to allow that. But if the consultation goes ahead and it approves the system, what will happen is that the go-ahead would allow these systems to be used up to the 70-mile-per-hour speed limit on motorways. The introducing systems would require a change to the current legal system, and the DFT says it's now considering that. But what worries me is how these systems are actually held, how they're framed as being useful. The BBC, for example, their writer on their article on the website yesterday said it could make potentially long stretches of tedious motorway driving a thing of the past. What sort of worries me is this idea that somehow motorway driving is tedious. I don't know about you, but I'm on pretty high alert anytime I'm on a motorway, regardless of how busy or empty it is, because I know how inattention at 70 miles an hour can have very, very sudden and very, very bad results. Some years ago, I was driving along minding my own business. I was in the car, and a car gently overtook me. I was in the middle lane overtaking something on the inside lane. A car overtook me, and for some reason it just veered out of the lane, exactly the kind of thing that the lane keeping system is designed to prevent. But as soon as the driver's offside wheel dug into that sort of gravel drain which is alongside the Armco, the car got swung hard into the Armco. Now, this is all happening at 70 plus miles per hour, remember. And what happened next was that the car rolled over straight in front of me. It probably rolled over 3 or 4 times. Somehow or other, I managed to avoid the car. I didn't, by the time I'd actually sort of stopped responding automatically, I was sort of a quarter of a mile past the accident behind me, and there were things going on back there which I have to admit I carried on at that point, left everybody else to sort it out. But I had a millisecond warning. The Tesla system defined as level 2 on a 5-level system for self-driving cars, and it's said to require the driver's attention at all times. Yet at the same time, what we're encouraging with these systems is that the driver relinquishes control, physical control of the car, but maintains mental control. Now, that simply doesn't work. It's the worst of all possible worlds. A system that cannot deal with emergencies, but lulls the driver into a state of inattention. Without constant input, it's remarkably difficult. It's almost impossible to stay alert. It's simply not how the human brain actually functions. I've talked many times about this when I've been talking about No Surprise. It actually takes up to 3 seconds for a rider or a driver, and that means one who's actively piloting the vehicle at the moment, to recognize a potentially developing emergency. Now, if you take away the physical control of the vehicle, it's inevitable that the mental alertness is going to go down. Think flight crew in the cockpit. One of the biggest problems with the highly trained flight crew is what's sometimes called panic in the cockpit. An alarm goes off unexpectedly, and even though the aircrew is trained to deal with emergencies like this, their reactions are often slow, they're confused, and they don't work together as a team either. But if these systems are cleared for use on cars, they'll be available to drivers with zero training in how to use the system. And many of them probably won't even have read the handbook. So my opinion is that what this technology is, it's a very risky halfway house. I'm sure it'll prevent some minor accidents, and I'm equally positive it will cause some bad ones. However, there is a clause hidden in the detail of that consultation, which could put the whole system on hold. The consultation will also look at whether the ALKS lane keeping enabled cars should be classified as automated. And this is a huge step, because if that happens, if that reclassification happens, what it does is it shifts the responsibility away from the driver to the technology provider. Now, you expect the manufacturers to fight that long and hard. They will almost certainly want to devolve that responsibility onto the driver, as it is at the moment. If your ABS system doesn't stop you in an emergency, you can't sue the manufacturer because your ABS didn't stop you. It's still your responsibility. But with an automated car, things become rather more different. So expect drivers to fight that because the claims could get rather expensive. Right, okay. I mentioned last week that Southwark Council had got themselves into a little bit of a pickle with a traffic calming scheme. Here's a picture of the sort of thing I'm talking about. They've basically plonked planters in the road, and the idea is that it would encourage cycling and walking. Unfortunately, what it's done is it's blocked roads used by the police and the other emergency services, as well, of course, as local residents who can't get through roads that they used to be able to drive through either, something that's increasingly happening right across London as councils use their emergency powers under the coronavirus pandemic to institute green traffic calming schemes. There are also reports that the council's own waste collection services were not informed and that their collection services have been badly disrupted. MP Neil Coyle, he wrote to Southwark Council's Transport Cabinet member, Richard Livingstone, and he said basically that the difficulties experienced by the emergency and council services should have been foreseen. He said that issues were wholly obvious and that he's amazed that the council didn't actually anticipate this. Livingstone responded in turn that the police were kept informed of changes to the road network, which is something that the superintendent of Walworth Police Station backed up, though he did confirm that the blockade had led to frustrations when stopping mopeds. So, okay. Right, so not all the traffic calming schemes going to plan. Right, okay. Something else that I just want to talk about quickly is some airbag jackets. One of the, its products getting a big push from manufacturers right now. Motorcyclists are rightly interested in protecting themselves. I tend to think that more money spent on some proactive safety, i.e. before you fall off, rather than huge investments in reactive safety, which is involved after you fall off, would benefit more riders. But hey ho. You can't stop people buying what they want to buy. Not surprisingly, once one airbag product hit the market, others have followed fairly quickly. And right now, there's quite a range of systems available, from the original lanyard-triggered airbag jackets to the latest systems, which use complex motion detectors bolted to rider and bike, which either sense the fact that the rider's parting company with the motorcycle, or that the front of the machine is beginning to crush under the impact of a collision. The early lanyard systems were actually too slow to deploy the jacket in a collision. They're okay if you fell off the bike, sort of a sky ground situation, but hitting cars, they really didn't go off on time. So the latest all use the sensor-based system to get the jacket inflated more quickly, and Held are the latest to go down this route with a sensor-based system. Their big selling point, they claim, is that it doesn't need to be paired with one of their own jackets. Unlike many of the other major manufacturers, you can use it. It's an entirely self-contained item, so you can pop it over your existing jacket or under it if there's enough space. Price appears reasonable enough at first, €350 for the airbag itself, but then you discover that you have to pay another 400 odd euro for the electronics. Or you can lease them, at bargain £12 a month or £120 a year, apparently. And they're trying to sell the lease system, because if you keep the airbag jacket for more than a couple of years, they'll make more money out of it. That's why you get all sorts of rental systems, from anything from phones to cars. Okay, so the lease option offers extra perks, including unlimited updates and an unlimited warranty. And this is the one I liked most of all: a VIP service should the system stop working. Now I'm intrigued. How do you know it's not working until you test it? Answers on the postcard, please. You should be able to get the Held jacket as of next month. All right, okay. Now, you probably spotted the Continental Twin and the GT from Royal Enfield. Interceptor, that's the other name I was struggling to remember. Have a look at that. I rather like that. I mean, its heritage is fairly obvious. It's the sort of cafe racer of the 60s. The nearest competitor would be the Triumph's Thruxton. The big difference is the affordability. Although there's quite a lot of bespoke bits and pieces on that bike, I think that's absolutely rather tasty. These 650 twins are affordable, not particularly powerful. They fit for the A2 license at 47 horsepower, but frankly, that's good enough for the way over the ton, which means they're quicker than the bikes that they would have been sort of based on in the 1960s. This particular model's had a full suspension upgrade. There's Öhlins on the back as well. I believe there's something been done with the front forks. I also think I believe the brakes have been updated, and there are various things like the triple clamps which are new. So I quite like that. I think it's rather pretty. There is one slight drawback. If you look at that particular photograph, what's going down first? Looks horribly like the exhaust system to me. So I suspect if you're going to use this machine for sort of sporty riding in any seriousness, my guess is that you're probably going to have to do something with those downpipes. They would appear to me to be pretty iffy in their placing. But apart from that, for me, that actually looks like quite a nice motorcycle. You probably hate it. Do tell me what you think. Okay, so just finishing off quickly then, as we're already actually over time. One of the problems that I come across with bike training, and any kind of training that involves getting to people, is that you have the hard to reach people. It's a debate I've had several times with a New Zealander called Terry Leach, and he's questioned the value of interventions such as the Shiny Side Up tour that I worked on twice, 2018, 2019. I don't think there are any easy answers to this, but one of the problems for sure with road safety is that it either preaches at people, that's never a successful approach, or it appeals only to the already converted zealots. And that's, again, it's just wasted effort then. Road safety is never a topic which is going to get the juices bubbling away. It's pretty dry, isn't it? I mean, let's be perfectly honest. But there are, I think, ways to make road safety appealing to a broader range. I try to put a lot of everyday scenes into my posts, which I put on Facebook, simply so people can relate to them. So that they can, you can say, oh yeah, that's happened to me. I put up a post about lines of sight and drivers not seeing bikes yesterday, and a couple of people instantly said, this is the sort of thing that's happened to me, or this is what occurred to me about this. And that's great. That's exactly the kind of response I'm looking for. One of the things I try to do is I admit that I have made mistakes in the past. I often try to illustrate what I'm talking about by saying how I got it wrong. There's a story I regularly tell about falling off by locking the front wheel up and rolling into the path of a double-decker bus in London, and wondering whether or not the double-decker would stop before it squashed my head. It did, by about a metre. That was a very, very scary moment, and a good wake-up call to go and not fall off when next time I did an emergency stop. Hopefully, again, that gets over to people. There are other ways of making the message interesting. Years ago, I worked on a project with the European motorcycle manufacturers ASIM to put out a series of cartoons which came under the banner of Lucky 13, because there happened to be 13 of them. Although ASIM don't seem to have them up on their website anymore, I've still got copies on my website as PDFs, which you can find under the free resources. So go and have a look at those. I think putting that kind of info into a cartoon format worked remarkably well. They were accessible to young people that way as well, and they're very often the really difficult group to reach. Another group that's really awkward to reach are what the New Zealanders and the Australians call the bikies. And these are the sort of hardcore, I mean, I don't want to say Harley owning, but they do often own Harleys. But they're the hardcore bikers, the ones who sort of are authority rejecting and usually see anybody, spouting road safety as an authority figure. So they're very, very difficult to get to. And really, the only way you can approach those groups is by converting one of their peers. And this is where I think the Shiny Side Up did astonishingly well, because on one of our talk nights, we had a gang member actually turn up on one of our talks. He was wearing his cut-offs with his patches on it, and he stood at the back of the auditorium, pointedly not taking a seat with everybody else. But what I spotted immediately when I was giving my talk was that he had a notebook out and he was taking notes, and he apparently was taking notes right through all the presentations. At the end, he even came up and bought a couple of my books to take away with him. So, I really do think that we did a little bit of good that night in reaching one of the harder to reach groups. So I know that a lot of people are skeptical about the value of road safety interventions, and I'd say rightly so, because far too many road safety initiatives are the same old. I spotted one from ROSPA the other day, which said, drivers don't see you on motorcycles. So what did they say? Drivers look harder for bikes. How about motorcyclists look harder for cars? It's the same old message, and it's the same flawed old message, and that's ROSPA, just coming out with the same old stuff. But I honestly think that Shiny Side Up and the work being done by the New Zealand Transport Agency and their Accident Corporation Commission are actually trying to do something different. And to paraphrase an old advert, I think they are beginning to reach the riders that other schemes cannot reach. All right, okay, that's all for today. Do look back on Wednesday at 11 o'clock. We'll be doing the next show. I've completely forgot to show you any banners, but that's the first one then. Just have a look in Wednesdays and Sundays at 11. You can catch up if you've missed it here on Facebook, or you can get it over on my YouTube page. And if you've enjoyed the show, do consider popping over to my coffee page, where you will find lots and lots of content. For just £3, you can access almost 200 articles, plus all the back shows from Elevenses. And if you become a subscriber, just £3 a month, you can get a lot more subscriber-only content as well. So thank you very much indeed for watching once again. I hope that you will be with me this Wednesday on at 11 as well. Right, so for now, bye from Kevin Williams here with Elevenses.